Hey all, are you wondering what the biggest keys, the biggest things coming to Marvel Snap in this upcoming season? We're going to review those along with the new cards, the spotlights, what should you be saving for those specifically, maybe a priority list, some new features that are going to be coming to the game. One of them may be a secret, kinda, I don't know. We're going to find some stuff out there that seems to be pretty interesting. Plus, we've got some fun Hellfire Gala variants along with some winter theme ones as well. So check those out. So let's dive right in. First up, we've got to start with cards, and we are going to be using Marvel Snap Zone for our website to review these. Shout out to them. Thanks for having this up there. Very much appreciate it. So the season card is going to be Sebastian Shaw. Seems like a pretty strong, powerful card. It's going to be 3 cost, 4 power, and we're going to have some video out there that's going to be from Second Dinner, the specific YouTube video did. So you can see with some of the cards we're going to have on here, slightly different. We'll see what comes to the game, etc. Description: when this card permanently gains power, gain +2 more power, wherever this is. So basically, you want to find ways to give this more power, whether it's Okoye, whether it's Forge, whether it's Silver Surfer, certain ways to give Blue Marvel, anything that's going to give this card more power. Specifically, it gains more power, which can ramp up pretty big depending on the type of deck you're going to use. I definitely plan on building some decks around this guy. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It can get pretty big, and I think it's going to be pretty meta. So season pass card, I would definitely recommend probably buying that. Now I say that every season because the season pass is always worth your dollars. You're going to spend anything in game, and look, we all spend some money on entertainment, hobbies, etc. I think for $10 US, that's a fairly reasonable cost. So we're going to go over these cards in order that they're going to be released to the game. So Sebastian Shaw, first one. Next up is going to be Blob. 6 cost, 4 power. On reveal, merge your deck into this and gain its total power. This card cannot be moved. I've gone back and forth with this card a little bit, and I think there's a lot of potential here. One of the things they show in the video is how Blob is going to be basically a counter to Darkhawk. So no matter what you've got in your deck, it's going to suck it all up. And I think that's got some huge potential. The only thing that I don't love about it is not knowing about what's going to happen with Jane Jaw, or basically any Lockjaw decks. Whereas if you pull up Blob, does it make your entire deck go away? I think it probably does. So that means you can only play what's in your hand, but that's still not a bad thing. Now, I think you got to be careful because you can still get Blob destroyed with a Shang-Chi. But man, this card is going to be huge, and I think it is going to be a card that's going to be all over the place. I think it's going to be a very, very popular card. And again, we're going to be talking about prioritization from the spotlights, tokens, etc. at a graphic that we're going to have here in a little while. All right, so Blob, I think solid card, definitely look at. And then we've got Havoc. I think in the video it shows it as a 2/0. Havoc, after each turn, you lose 1 max energy, and this gains +3 power. I think it's now actually +4 power. This card, it seems, and we've got some talk from Glenn out there on Twitter, Discord, etc. The max energy about this, it is going to limit your max energy, meaning if you play this on 2, you will never get more than 2 max energy the rest of the game. So we talked about, oh, it's just going to make -1 for that particular turn. So on 3, you'd have 2, on 4, you'd have 3, 5, you'd have 4. It doesn't work that way. It takes 1 off each turn. -1 max each turn. So you're locked in at whatever energy you used at that specific turn. You use it on turn 3, you're locked in at 3. So there's going to be some interesting things to do with this. Now, this card is going to get big. People are talking about potentially using it in negative. Obviously, you could get a cheaper cost with a Ravana type situation. You can Viper it over to your opponent as well. Potentially leave them to not be able to play any cards. Maybe you Shang it yourself. This card, I've gone from this card being trash to this card being actually pretty serviceable to maybe it could be good. So it's going to be interesting to me. I do think that at the end of the day, it might be a little niche, but I think it'll be a very toxic and annoying card to play against if somebody gives it back to you in like a Viper junk type situation. So anyway, something to think about. I think it's going to be an interesting card. Next up, we've got Selene. This is a 1 cost, -1 power. on reveal, afflict the lowest power card in each player's hand with -3 power. Again, this could work really well with your junk/annihilus decks. So you want to get additional negative power to your goblins, just mess with your opponent, etc. And then you potentially throw it over there with your annihilus. Carnage, etc. You can destroy things on your side. I think Selene is going to be, again, a really good solid card. Everything I'm seeing in here for the entire season, as far as all of these cards go, I like them all. I really do. Havoc is probably the weakest link, but they're all pretty good. I really like what I'm seeing here, and I think it's a good month to use your spotlights, use tokens you've saved up to go ahead and get some of these new cards, because I do think, with maybe the exception of Havoc, but I don't even know if I feel comfortable saying that, they're all going to have some sort of impact, and I think they're going to shake up the meta a little bit. So plan accordingly. It's one of those months that I think we're going to be really, really hot and heavy into getting the new cards. So next, we want to cover some new locations. I think this is important before we get to some of the new features, because I do think those new features seem pretty dope. I wanted to cover this real quick first. White Palace. Copy the highest cost card in your opponent's hand. It's going to be like a White Queen, Emma Frost type card, where if it pops up, you just get it. Next up, we've got Castle Blackstone. The player winning here gets +1 energy each turn. This is going to be an insanely contested location for anybody to want to get. +1 energy each turn is awesome. I mean, it's like having Electro out there without the ongoing only play one card downside to it. So I like this quite a bit. Next up, we've got new features. And in new features, one of the ones that I went from thinking, who really cares, to actually this is pretty cool, and I think going to be very helpful for players that either don't know how to build decks or newer players to help them build those decks, and honestly potentially have some good retainage with those new players that might struggle, which helps all of us have a more fun and bigger gaming experience. So we want new players to stick around. Basically what happens here is you can choose, and you can see in the video footage here, that you're going to have a deck built automatically for you. I think that's phenomenal. Now, I think the coolest part here, and we're going to jump over to some specific discussions on this, is we've got some answers on exactly how this is going to work. It says, how does the deck autocomplete thing work? How does it find what cards to add to the deck? It uses a data science powered model based on your collection and the current meta to give you an amazing deck to play and complete. Picked up a new card and unsure how to use it? Get a full deck recommendation with Deck Builder. Have a shell you like but you're missing a few pieces? Get a full deck recommendation with Deck Builder. And then this goes on to specifically ask again, and it's similar, and this is the part I really love about this, because this hones in exactly how this is going to work. It says this feature looks amazing, but I have questions. How does the algorithm get it auto-completed? Can we set X cards we want in a deck and only the remaining cards get auto-completed? Is there a limit? And this is where it ties into this. It's a nice transition from the last one we looked at. You can utilize Deck Builder, complete your deck from anywhere between 1 to 11 cards in your deck. You can pick one card and it will generate 11 additional cards to complete a fun competitive deck for you to play. You could alternatively have a partially built deck with 3 or 7 or even 11 cards pre-selected by you, the player, and then use Deck Builder to fill in the remaining slots to make an awesome deck. And I really love that. I think that's fantastic, just where you're like, you know what? Let's see what the game says. Let's see what they throw my way. I love this. It's just one way for not just people who are good at the game, but people who are maybe newer to the game to just theory craft a little bit to see what the algo gives us, algorithm. And look, it could be good, it could be bad, but either way, worst case scenario, it helps some of those newer players have a little bit easier way to figure out what they might want to put in a deck, and I absolutely love that. This next part we covered in a video previously. We saw it in, I think it was San Diego Comic-Con, if I remember correctly, but there's new emojis coming to the game. We all know this is happening. There were a bunch in the footage. We're showing those now so you can check them out. I think it's great. It's going to be very interesting. Now, I will say that there's the chance for more toxic play from this, but you know what? Look, if hopefully we get this mute all function soon, which if it really, really bothers you, you can mute them. We certainly can talk about what's bad mannering or BMing later. But I love it. I think more emojis in the game. Some of these are really cool, and I can't wait to see them. Okay, next up. What is this? Shout out to Intero Bang. Go follow him. Does Twitter on Twitch, obviously. Really fun Marvel Snap community member. Love interacting with him. So, just the eyes, right? What's happening here? Featured Venomized villains, 1 out of 12. We've got a Venomized avatar here, Kingpin Venomized. We've got a Spotlight key. We've got a Venom emoji. And we've got the Kingpin Venom variant. All pointing towards this Venomized villains, 1 out of 12. And the question is what's happening here? So we've scoured the internet to get some potential answers into what's coming here. Some of us might like this, some of us might not. We'll see. All left to speculation as far as I can tell until we get some real answers. Next up, we found a post here specifically in Spanish, and I believe I might have found this with Glazer's Twitter, so shout out to Glazer as always. And it's, you know, I don't speak Spanish since high school at least, so it auto-translate it. What do you think of the new albums? Rewards will include a featured key, which I believe to be the Spotlight key that we talked about earlier. You will need 12 variants to complete the album. You will gradually receive rewards until the album is filled. 3, 6, 9, and 12 options, which that's what it's got. 1 out of 12 here. So the way this seems this is going to work is there are going to be Venomized, obviously, variants. And as you collect these Venomized variants, villains, etc., it's going to give you basically 4 rewards, which you could get. You could get the specific avatar, you could get the Spotlight key, which is awesome. You could get the specific emoji, and you could get the specific variant. So it's going to incentivize you, if you want these things, to collect these specific type of variants, which is interesting. It is contrary to the whole concept that Snap wanted everybody to have sort of a different collection, but it's still not that far off of that a little bit, because look, I might have 12 different Venomized variants than you do. It's not that big a deal, right? I think this is great. Now, there's certainly the potential for weird monetization, etc., but I'm always pro monetization if it's reasonable. The game needs to survive, to pay its employees, to pay its licensing fees, etc. So I think I'm down for, well, I'm not, I think I know I'm down for that. So again, assuming that the costs are reasonable. So I think this is a lot of fun. I'm really excited about it. And look, even though I'm not a huge variant guy, this could make me more into it, spending my gold on that shop to fill some of these in. You know, I get some Spotlight keys. I like those things. But again, the key part is, are the actual animations of these cards going to be good? That's, to me, that's where I get in. I just love that. And also, I think that depending what some of these could be, maybe they have an epic version of one of these where it's 1 out of 24, and the 24th one is like a mythic. That could be pretty neat, you know, where you're trying to climb and get that card, and that's the only way you can get it, and it's super rare. Giant thumbs up there. They should definitely do that. I love things like that. Next up, we've got the Spotlight Cash tier list. We're going over all of the Spotlights that are in December and January. Little caveat, the ones that are in January, these are hot take rankings. I look at it, give it a quick thought, put it on here. I do not give it a deep thought. I like to think about it and sort of let it evolve a little bit, but this is my initial hot take. Anything with a yellow border around it is a January Spotlight. Anything with a white border around it is going to be a December Spotlight. And you will see I've got a lot of Spotlights up here in the Save For section. And the way to sort of look at this, when I'm looking at Save For, I'm saying save your Spotlight caches for these. Easy skip. I think, look, I wouldn't really spend it. Good niche. Maybe for a certain type of player, this might make sense for you. Solid is just pretty solid. It's a decent Spotlight. So now a lot of times these are very subjective basing on your collection. And I will say that up front, that's fine. I like to look at these more so of somebody who might be closer to getting complete with things and maybe have a little bit limited of your Spotlight caches. So first up in the bottom right, you can see easy skip. I've got the first week of December. It's Man-Thing, Stegron, and Jeff the Baby Landshark. You probably think I am crazy for having Jeff on something like this. And yes, Jeff is amazing, but gosh, Man-Thing is not that exciting, and Stegron I still think sucks. So I'm not really that attracted to that Spotlight. I think if you're somebody who needs Jeff, I would focus in on a different week where Jeff is paired up with somebody better, or just spend the 6K tokens. After this, and I'm going to go in December order first so that we know what's coming up in December. The next December one that's going to come up is Blob. Blob is December 12th. He's with Living Tribunal and Ravana Renslayer. I think that one I mentioned earlier, Blob is a solid card. I think Living Tribunal and Ravana, both good cards. So in my opinion, this is a save 4 week because especially if you don't have Living Tribunal or Ravana, I think it's a good week. Even if you got all 3 of these new, I think it's a giant thumbs up. You're going to be really, really happy. I've got Havoc. It's Havoc, Nico Monero, and Legion. I've currently gotten solid. Now, I will admit that Nico and Legion being in this spotlight week makes it move up some. And, you know, Havoc, I mentioned before, I'm torn. Now, and I will say, from everything I've seen, all of these, including January, they're all Series 5. Typically, I move them down if they're Series 4 to say buy with tokens. From what I can tell, everything's Series 5. So just know that. I should have mentioned the front end, but now you know. So, Havoc, I've got it in solid right now. I think it might be fine to skip it. Now, I say if you don't have Nico or Legion, Legion is still a great card. He's not getting a lot of play, but I think it's just because we've all sort of forgotten he exists. But it's a really good card, and Nico is phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. We've got it in solid, but I could easily put this in a save 4 because if Havoc is really dangerous and annoying and toxic, people are going to want him. The last week we've got in December is Selene. It's paired up with Iron Lad and Black Knight. I am not a fan of Black Knight at all. I do not like the card, but I do like Iron Lad a lot. It's a really good card, and I think Selene is going to be a pretty solid to good card. So for that reason, I've got Selene week in a save 4 because there's 2 cards here. If you don't have them, you're really going to want to pull for it. And then quickly in January, basically the first week we've got Kyra, High Evo, and Hitmonkey. High Evo and Hitmonkey are both great cards. Kyra is going to be the card where it keeps you from destroying, or your 1 cost, and I think your 6 cost cards can't get destroyed. I think it's going to be a really powerful card. I think people are going to want it. I could see this one moving down a little bit because maybe it might be a little bit too niche, but it depends, right? Next up after what's January 2nd, and then we've got January 9th, Hercules, Galactus, Howard the Duck. Hercules basically moves. I think it's anytime another card moves there. I just don't. He doesn't gain points. He just moves. I mean, I could see it maybe paired up with Werewolf by Night so that it keeps spaces open a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't know if I really like that card that much. It seems a little lame, frankly. Next up after Hercules, we've got Meek. Meek is basically it move. Anytime you discard a card, it moves and gains 1 power. Okay, like this is combining move and discard. I'm sure Molt will come up with a decent deck here. I currently don't really love this. So, and I should have mentioned this, Hercules I've got between easy skip and good niche. I don't like Howard. Galactus is just whatever these days. Meek is a little bit higher up in this ranking because Annihilus is really good. Phoenix Force isn't bad. So, you know, I don't really necessarily love those, but they're not bad. And at least not worthy enough to go higher as far as I'm concerned right now. Next up, we've got Grandmaster on January 23rd. He's paired up with Loki and Elsa. So this makes this way higher on the list. I actually don't know if I like Grandmaster much as a card. It's a 2/0, and it basically, I think it's if you play this in the mid, or maybe if it's you play it anywhere, basically it moves a card to the middle, an on-reveal card to the middle, and it'll on-reveal once more. So you can get a random RNG on-reveal card to do it once again, but seems decent. I think given those 2 other cards, it might be worth saving for. And then last but not least, in January, we've got Beta Ray Bill, which is a 4/5. It gives you Stormbreaker, which I think it doubles the power of this card, so basically makes it a 4/10, which is really strong. Stormbreaker is like Mjolnir. And then Werewolf by Night and Nebula, both again solid cards. So I'm like, well, I think this is solid. Now, do you put Beta Ray Bill in a deck like Jane Jaw along with Jane Foster, Thor, where she pulls in the zeros? Maybe. I mean, you could do 4 and 3, Beta Ray Bill on 4, Jane Jaw on 5. I mean, and then get all the zeros and just all of a sudden it's all there. That could be pretty good. You combine that with a Lockjaw and you leave your Lockjaw alone on a lane and you put at least 2 zeros in it. That's a pretty good setup right there. Again, you need a certain path to happen, but I like it. So this is where I'm at with all the spotlights right now. I think it's a decent way to plan the month. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below as far as which of these you're most excited about, what you're going to save for. That's all we've got. A little bit longer video today, but it's a big month, a lot of stuff coming. We're going to have a patch. I think there's going to be a lot of fun stuff in that patch as well. We're not going to talk about any of that, but at least for now, if you want to see it in the future, consider hammering down that like button, subscribing. Always appreciate that. Until next time, we hope you have a wonderful day.